12 days until 3I/ATLAS reaches Earth. Right now, it's doing the impossible. Its tail points toward the sun, defying every law we know. A 60,000-kilometer glowing halo extending in the wrong direction. Objects orbiting a nucleus too small to hold them. And NASA? Dead silent. They release stunning Hubble images showing these physics-breaking anomalies, yet refuse to acknowledge what's staring us in the face. Why won't they explain the anti-tail, the sun-war teardrop? Is this ignorance or intentional silence? Let's dive right in. When astronomer Michael Jorger captured his latest image of 3I/ATLAS, he did something brilliant. He placed it side by side with Comet Lemon, a completely normal comet doing exactly what comets are supposed to do. Both objects show the classic dust tail and ion tail being pushed away by solar wind. That's textbook behavior we've observed in thousands of comets. But then you look at 3I/ATLAS, and there's this massive structure extending in the opposite direction, a lance pointing directly at the sun. I've spent hours searching through comet databases, historical observations, decades of astronomical photography. This doesn't exist anywhere else. Now I know what you're thinking. Sometimes we see optical illusions with comets, where crossing their orbital plane creates the appearance of an anti-tail. You're seeing where the comet was weeks ago versus where its current tail is, and from our perspective, it looks like a tail pointing sunward. I get it. That's real. But that's not what we're seeing with 3I/ATLAS. This has been observed consistently, from multiple angles, over months. This is a physical structure maintaining its sunward orientation regardless of the object's motion through space. The latest Hubble Space Telescope data just intensified this mystery. With a resolution of 0.04 arcseconds per pixel, the sharpest view we've ever gotten, Hubble revealed two distinct jets and an anti-tail extending more than 60,000 kilometers toward the sun. That's 5 times Earth's diameter. Think about that scale for a moment. This isn't a small anomaly. The July Hubble observation showed the same thing. But here's where physics starts breaking down completely. During perihelion, this anti-tail apparently reversed direction relative to the object's steady motion. No matter which way 3I/ATLAS travels, the anti-tail adjusts to keep pointing at the sun. Solar wind pressure is measured in the billions of pascals. It accelerates particles to hundreds of kilometers per second. For something to extend 60,000 kilometers against that force requires an energy source we can't account for with normal comet activity. When I explain this to people, I ask them to imagine trying to blow out a candle, but instead of the flame bending away from your breath, it leans directly into it. That's the level of physical impossibility we're discussing. Everyone's been criticizing the recent Hubble image, calling it blurry and disappointing. But they're completely missing what it reveals. Yes, the image isn't as crisp as we'd like, but it shows the nucleus more clearly than previous observations, and more importantly, it captures this teardrop-shaped glowing halo extending toward the sun. Every diagram you've ever seen of a comet shows the teardrop pointing away from the sun because that's how physics works. Solar radiation pressure pushes material outward, but 3I/ATLAS does the exact opposite. Dr. Avi Loeb published a paper analyzing this phenomenon. He suggests the teardrop consists of a large number of non-volatile objects that separated from 3I/ATLAS due to its measured non-gravitational acceleration. His calculations predicted that by November 30th, these objects would be approximately 60,000 kilometers closer to the sun than 3I/ATLAS itself. When the new Hubble image came back, that's exactly what we're seeing. A 60,000 kilometer extension matching his prediction perfectly. non-volatile objects, swarms of material, non-gravitational acceleration. These aren't terms we use to describe normal comets. What frustrates me is that while we're waiting for answers, critical data is sitting in storage. On November 2nd, the European Space Agency's JUICE probe, currently headed toward Jupiter, turned 5 of its scientific instruments toward 3 I/ATLAS from just 66 million kilometers away. That's incredibly close compared to our Earthbound observations. JUICE captured detailed spectrometry data, high-resolution images from its Janus camera, complete compositional analysis. But we won't see any of it until February 18th to 20th, 2026. The probe is using its main antenna as a heat shield right now, leaving only a smaller antenna that transmits data at an agonizingly slow rate. They released one preliminary image, a quarter of a single frame showing the halo and hints of 2 tails. That's all we get for now. What did JUICE detect at that range that we're not seeing? The chemical composition adds another layer to this mystery. ALMA, the Atacama Large Millimeter Array, has been tracking 3 I/ATLAS's molecular emissions since August. They detected significant quantities of methanol and hydrogen cyanide across multiple observation dates. But the distribution pattern is strange. Hydrogen cyanide production is depleted in the sunward direction, while methanol is enhanced. Even more unusual, some methanol is being produced in the gas plume itself, more than 258 kilometers from the nucleus. That's not normal outgassing behavior where material simply vents from a heated surface. The methanol production rate increased dramatically from August through October. The methanol to hydrogen cyanide ratio in 3 I/ATLAS ranks among the highest ever measured in any comet, surpassed only by the extremely bizarre Comet C/2016 R2. And anyone familiar with that object knows it already defied easy explanation. Methanol is a building block for amino acids and sugars, fundamental to organic chemistry. Microorganisms can use it as their sole energy source. It's abundant in star-forming regions and planet-forming disks around young stars. But why is 3 I/ATLAS producing increasing amounts? And why is that production happening in the surrounding gas cloud rather than just the nucleus? Then there are the objects. Thai astronomer Therasak Thanglong analyzed time-lapse sequences of 3 I/ATLAS and found consistent brightness variations, flashes or bright spots appearing near the nucleus. These aren't random noise or imaging artifacts. They appear consistently across multiple observation sessions. If these are actual objects, they must be massive to be resolved at this distance. Estimates suggest 1 to 2 kilometers in size, possibly larger. Here's the problem that makes my head hurt. 3 I/ATLAS has a nucleus maybe 6 to 10 kilometers in diameter, possibly 20 at most. That's tiny on cosmic scales. There is no way an object that small has enough gravitational pull to hold kilometer-sized objects in orbit. None. The physics doesn't work. We see this clearly with other small bodies in our solar system. They don't have satellites because they lack sufficient mass. So either these are fragments breaking away, as 3 I/ATLAS potentially disintegrates, or something else is happening that we don't understand. The mainstream explanation being circulated right now is cryovolcanism. The theory suggests subsurface ice reservoirs are being heated by solar radiation, causing violent eruptions. I want to be fair to this idea, so let me explain why it doesn't hold up. We've seen real cryovolcanism at Saturn's moon Enceladus, where massive plumes of water ice shoot hundreds of kilometers into space. But Enceladus has something 3 I/ATLAS could never have: tidal heating from Saturn's immense gravity at close range. That tidal force literally flexes Enceladus's interior, keeping its subsurface ocean liquid and creating the immense pressure needed for those geysers. It's thousands of times more powerful than anything solar heating could produce. Enceladus is also hundreds of kilometers in diameter with substantial internal reservoirs. 3I/ATLAS is roughly 10 kilometers across. Where's the pressure coming from? Solar heating at 1.7 to 2.6 astronomical units, creating million-kilometer structures that overcome solar wind. We've studied countless comets throughout our solar system's history. Not one exhibits cryovolcanic activity. Yet this paper, which hasn't even passed peer review, is being published in mainstream science outlets, as though it's established fact. I think I know why. Because it's a natural explanation, and in our current scientific paradigm, any natural explanation, regardless of how physically implausible, is preferable to considering alternatives that make us uncomfortable. What bothers me most isn't the anomalies themselves. Science thrives on mysteries. What bothers me is the silence surrounding them. NASA releases these Hubble images showing clear, obvious deviations from known physics. The sunward anti-tail that defies solar wind. The teardrop coma pointing backward. The brightness variations suggesting large objects near the nucleus. They publish the data and say nothing. No press conference. No official statement acknowledging these anomalies challenge our understanding. Just raw images dropped online with zero context about what makes this object extraordinary. Papers discussing artificial explanations, controlled thrust mechanisms, ion propulsion, technological signatures, never receive peer review. They're never mentioned in major science publications. They're dismissed without examination. This isn't about jumping to alien conclusions. This is about asking why obvious physical impossibilities aren't being investigated by the institutions we fund to explore these questions. When an interstellar visitor behaves in ways that contradict established physics, shouldn't that warrant more than silence and implausible natural explanations? Dr. Loeb has been consistently vocal, publishing his analysis openly. But where's the broader scientific community? Where's NASA's explanation for how a 10-kilometer object creates a 60,000-kilometer sunward extension that defies one of the most powerful forces in our solar system? Where's the physics models showing how this occurs naturally? They don't exist. And maybe that's because they can't exist within our current understanding, which leaves us with 12 days to closest approach and more questions than ever. So let's be clear about what we know. 3I/ATLAS is exhibiting behaviors that contradict fundamental physics. A 60,000-kilometer anti-tail pointing at the sun. A teardrop coma extending in the wrong direction. Objects orbiting a nucleus too small to hold them gravitationally. These aren't speculations. They're documented observations from Hubble, ALMA, and multiple ground-based telescopes. NASA has the data. They've released the images. But they haven't explained the anomalies that are staring us in the face. Maybe there's a natural explanation we haven't discovered yet. Or maybe we're watching something that forces us to expand what we think is possible. In 12 days, 3I/ATLAS reaches closest approach. In February, the JUICE probe releases its close-range data. This story is far from over, and I'll be covering every single development right here on Galactic Breaking News. If this video made you think differently about what's happening out there, hit that like button. Drop your theory in the comments. What do you think is really going on with 3I/ATLAS? And if you want to stay ahead of every breaking development in space, subscribe to Galactic Breaking News and turn on notifications. Because when the truth finally comes out, you'll hear it here first. The universe just got a lot more interesting. I'll see you in the next one.